Neil McPherson here, Wirksworth Gunroom. Today, dual wielding. Now, dual wielding with bolt action rifles is fairly preposterous by anybody's standards, but as we've got a left and right handed example of both of these Ruger Scouts in, it seemed a good opportunity to do it, and a bit of fun. Let's take a look. So, in the usual manner, before we go any further, I'll show you these are clear. Detachable magazine on these. So that's clear. Detachable mag. And rifle clear. Now the Ruger Scout rifle, as seen here in its UK format, I'll cover the detailed differences to the others later on, pretty much follows Jeff Cooper's general idea. It's just under 1 metre in length. It's a little heavier at 3.5 kilos, which is 6.6 pounds thereabouts, than he'd said as the ideal. He'd wanted 3 kilos with a max of 3.5, so they've got into that. Adjustable buttstock, so you can keep it, you can put these spacers in or out and have it really short. Features such as smooth bolt handle knob, iron sights, forward rail for mounting long eye relief optics to leave the breech clear. Although in this case I wonder the extent to which that's really necessary, because the Scout here uses a box magazine, 10 round box magazine. We'll discuss the magazines in a bit more detail too later. But the forward sight arrangement is ideal if you're going to use chargers, but there's no facility to use chargers, so I wonder about the real utility of that. But it's there, and it's one of the sort of features that Cooper mentioned. Other than that, you've got ghost ring sight, post foresight. This does actually come with a set of rings, and as supplied, here they are. Nice little set of stainless rings. They come as standard in the packaging with some extra butt spacers, set of tools, lock, those sort of bits. Looking over the rifle in general, in this case we've got a laminated stock, a nice bit of checkering. Often on this sort of price range of rifle, checkering is stamped in, but on this it seems to be, if it is stamped in, it's certainly done quite nicely. I would say it's actually machine cut. Certainly seems to be quite a neat job. Fairly neat inletting. I'm not going to bother sticking a pound note under here. Well, we don't have pound notes. Scottish one. We're going to have a Scottish pound note. Not going to bother. It's a free floated barrel. You've got facility to put these scope rings on, as I say, or this Picatinny type rail at the front. The action is pure Mauser. It's absolutely standard Mauser extractor and bolt release. You have the Mauser claw, full length. It couldn't be more Mauser if it is. It's not even modified Mauser in any sense. What you do have is a 3-position safety on the side, so that works as you would expect. You've either got fire, or you've got a centre position whereby you can operate the bolt but it won't fire, or a rear position where the bolt's locked. And a locking bolt feature is quite useful if you're out in the field. It means that you can't catch that on anything. You can't catch it and end up opening your rifle, possibly losing a round. The stock is laminated. It's got this, they call this a black stock. Well, part of it's black, isn't it? It's a sort of more of a grey, silvery grey finish to my mind. Sling swivel fittings, quite a heavy profile barrel, and in the UK models the foresight block is detachable, and that gives you a half UNF thread, but more of that later. Buttstock has a rubber recoil pad, and all in all it's rather neat. You've got a 10 round magazine. Now, really interesting thing about the magazine I've discovered is that I looked at it and thought, is that really a 10 round magazine? Because when you see the size of it and compare it with some other 10 round magazines, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. And I've got one or two here, so let us take a look. Here we have magazines from a Lee Enfield. Let's compare the 10 round of a Lee Enfield magazine Ruger Scout's a bit bigger. A 10 round for an Accuracy International L96. 10 round from a Ruger TRG. And to give you a real good idea of the scale of it, because it does just strike me as huge. I did actually check this. We went and I got some rounds. I only had enough live rounds. We've got some drill rounds for later, but while we're off camera, I did check. Is that really only a 10 round magazine? Because there's a 20 round magazine off a G36, and you would expect that this was a 15 round magazine or something, but no, it's 10. It's just huge. The magazine is very much like an Accuracy International magazine, so much so that I actually thought, because I have an Accuracy International magazine here, that I would expect it to be able to fit. One of the key differences though is that the Accuracy International version is a double stack, and it's double stack double feed, and although this is pretty much the same width, it's single feed and appears to be single stack, which is why it's so deep. Rather unfortunate, because that would make such a neat alternative. I think you can probably get polymer mags for these now, and no doubt there are some 10 round magazines out there. True magazine release is a nice fumble free catch on the back here. Nose is in, locks in, bit of movement, maybe a bit noisy, probably not a real big problem, but quick to change, rather like a military magazine might be. And that ties in to some extent with Colonel Cooper's ideas with how these rifles might be used, both in a military context as well as a sporting rifle or a rifle for the Scout. Now you may have noticed, if you're familiar with the Scout in its US form, that there is no Flashhider on here. In standard trim these come with a Flashhider. Now the reason behind this for the UK market is, rather as in the case of a suppressor or moderator or silencer, a Flashhider in the UK is considered to be a controlled item, which means that you have to have separate authority to be able to buy it. If you're looking for a suppressor, a moderator, you say, oh well, I want it to protect my hearing, and so the animals don't hear the second shot or whatever, and not a problem, you get signed off and everybody gets one. But if you went and say, oh well, I want a Flashhider because I'm shooting at night and I don't want to lose my night vision, I think most people would rather find a bit of difficulty getting the authority for that, because the police will say, well, you don't really need it. And I think that is the reason that these have been altered from the standard that the US has. So what's been done is the Flashhider has been removed. I believe it screws off, but as I don't have one to compare, I'm afraid I can't look. You'll find it somewhere else on the internet, everything's out there. And the end of the barrel has then been taken off, parted off on the lathe, I would suggest, complete with the foresight, which is pinned onto it, pinned onto the small roll pin. And then the end of the barrel has been threaded, and it's been threaded half UNF as opposed to the half UNEF that the US market would be more likely to have. Half UNF is very common in the UK as a silencer moderator fitment. Now that means that we can then go and screw one on, and I do actually have something here. Just by way of example, this is a Ruger and Tomit, excellent value. We do actually sell these too. These come out at about $270, something like that, but do check, prices vary. You might be watching the video in years hence. And with the moderator on, you can see it still makes a pretty handy compact rifle. Quite pointable. In that case you'd probably remove the rear sight and you'd be using using a scope or possibly a red dot or something like that. But for the time being, let's spin that back off and put our foresight back on. One of the downsides of this arrangement with this foresight is that it's quite possible that it's perhaps not going to come unscrewed, but it's got to be clocked up to be vertical, and that might not always be quite the case. You might have to alter it with a shim washer, but they do come with a little nylon washer that locks them on. So in conclusion, pretty much ideal all-round rifle. It's got the features that Jeff Cooper had in mind. You can take it stalking, fit a moderator if you want, you can use the iron sights if you wish, fit a scope, long eye relief scope, you've got all those options, red dot maybe if it suits you. You've got a 10 round magazine capacity, so that's ample for anything. Would actually stack up pretty well if you've got a couple of spare mags for civilian service rifle competitions. Now, in the UK at present we're turning these out at $11.50, which I believe is fairly competitive. Can't necessarily hold that price forever, but that's what we've got them in now. And we don't always have them in stock, sometimes we get them in to order, and that's just how we happen to have a left and right one. So dual wielding it had to be. Thanks for looking. Moustache on fleek.